And if I take you backwards a little about the 2007 elections, I want to ask for all those who still hold on, or Martha did something wrong, like you didn't want Kibaki, President Kibaki, to have an agent.
Martha, Part 8, Take 1.
I hope you're enjoying this as much as we're enjoying this in here. Let me say this in advance. So don't even put it in the comments, why didn't you ask her this and why didn't you ask her that? Because there's so much, 66 years of such a rich heritage, such a rich, well-lived life. We're trying to compress in as little or as much time as we can do. It takes 66 years to compress that whole story, but in the conversation in the sitting here, we're trying to chronologically go from the day she was born till today, and in the process get as much value from the conversation. Thank you so much. If you're watching this far, go start from the beginning. Don't just look at the title and start from here. But I hope you're enjoying this. There's a very different light with which I see Martha. And Martha, every time I come here, I'm going to start by saying thank you. Thank you so much for what it is that you have done for this country. Thank you so much for what you've done for the different generations, and still, because you're still breathing, living, energetic, jovial, and full of life. Thank you for what you continue to do and what it is that you're going to do. There's something that I want to, that you told me off camera that I want you to say it again here. Yeah. And you said that the walkouts on Moi had an impact.
Yes, after the walkout in Kerugoya, which I'm calling the second walkout,
yes,
which was televised, which was dramatic, which was covered, well covered. Moi from Kerugoya Stadium proceeded to Meru. Without prompting, he invited Kiraito and Mwiraria to speak. From Meru, he went to Western Kenya, where he allowed Wafula wa Munyinyi to talk. So my walkout forced the recognition of the opposition and show of respect in public function. So it was not in vain. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go into a difficult history, a difficult time in the history of this country.
Yeah.
And that's the next elections from 2002, the ones for 2007.
2007. Maybe before we go there, we could briefly stop at the failed referendum.
Oh, yes.
I said the seeds of discord affected the referendum. And we went to the referendum, one government but two sides.
Yep.
The North side was led by Raila Odinga and the Orange Democratic Movement. That's why they got the orange as their symbol. And the Yes camp was led by the Kibaki ministers. Kiraito was the Minister of Justice, but I believed I campaigned for that defeated constitution even more than him as Minister of Water, but we were all supporting it.
Yeah.
So after the referendum, I said that Kibaki dissolved cabinet. When he dissolved cabinet, he formed the new cabinet in December 2005. After a month or 6 weeks, I can't remember.
And what was his basis of this new cabinet? What was he looking for?
I do not know. That only him can answer. Okay. But I know why he dissolved the cabinet. He dissolved the cabinet because he needed a cabinet that has harmony. Because he had a cabinet that was like split down the middle.
Yeah.
So instead of sacking the ministers who opposed the referendum, the constitution, he dissolved cabinet and then didn't pick them. And in their place, he picked ministers from other parties. Yeah, he picked the likes of Nyachai, his friend Jenga Karume, who was from Uhuru's KANU. He didn't have to consult KANU because the constitution said, but as a matter of courtesy, he could have, but Uhuru was part of the no team.
Yes.
So he didn't consult him. He appointed Karume. So the cabinet was a government of national unity to support his government to finish the term because a sizable chunk has gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Were you Were you, I'm trying to understand from the emotional perspective.
Yeah.
You've been let go. Do you catch feelings? Do you hold it like you're human as well?
No, I think what he did was practical, but I took a moment to reflect why he has given me the Ministry of Justice when it's in a complete mess, and why he didn't give me it in the first place. He's plucking me from water where I'm doing well and where I have unfinished reform business. Anyway, I thought to myself, somebody has to do it, let that somebody be me. And I got on with the job. I
think even you should have, I should have put you there first, but I'm sure he had his reasons. I can't speak as a president because I've never been one. Again, I'm trying to not just talk juju, I'm trying to talk like the layman, like I'm asking questions that I know people are thinking because I'm thinking them. Are you guys friends in the background? Do you come on stage here and fight, and then behind
friends with like who now?
Like for example, Raila was in the no camp.
No, that time we were not speaking. There was tension. We were not speaking.
So sometimes
relations are soured until you don't speak. Even when we negotiated for the National Accord in 2007, I could not even bring myself to shake the hands of William Ruto. It is Kofi Annan who had to organize that relations flow and people greet each other. And there were times when we went to Parliament in 93, after the 92 elections, when the relations broke with the KANU side, that opposition would boo if a KANU person is talking, and if an opposition person is talking, KANU would boo. And childish things. Tension that brings even childish behavior.
But after the lights and camera and action is off, you guys are not in a pub sitting down together or on the golf course having a drink?
People would talk on individual basis, but for me, the moment was the IPPG now, when the barriers were broken between opposition and KANU.
Okay. So for you, what we see is what we get. There's no
Akuna
under the table games. Okay. 2007, very difficult era in this country, that you have been seen in a certain light. Because of, let's just talk about it. I don't want to put words into your mouth. I always like saying, let's hear your perspective.
So 2007 election was an unusual election for me. Firstly, January of 2007, I realized that the voters of 2007 were children when I was first elected. And having finished 15 years, they have not known of any other person. So if they are told by somebody she has stayed too long, it's enough a reason to remove me. You see? I realized, and also they do not know me, their parents know me. So if I start saying the things I did in my first term, they won't know. So I realized I needed to reintroduce myself to the constituency. And I spent that whole year having seminars, having meetings where I introduced myself, meetings for men, and I call a greater percentage as youth. Meetings for women, a greater proportion, 60% being youthful, so that you're sort of introducing yourself and narrating your story. And it worked, and I got my vote, and I got elected.
Do you have a team that is giving you this data and this understanding, or is it also a mixture of that, and you go on the ground and you realize there's a disconnect?
You work with your, I realized, you just sit and it hits you that you might think now you have finished this period. You are very well known. It's like now knowing the Gen Zs know nothing about me. Very few do know. It's just a realization. You calculate the years and you see. So after that introduction, I did win, and I won very comfortably because I had a lead of over 12,000 votes. But then in Geshogo, 20,000 people had not voted out of the 76.
What?
And when we went to the tallying hall, we knew I had won convincingly. But the returning officer was not willing to start the tally even after all the ballots are brought. He's waiting, we don't know for what. And we wait the whole night. All the ballots are in by 11. My opponents are nowhere to be seen because they already know they have lost. I'm alone with my supporters. He keeps us up to the next day, midday. So I tell him now, we are going to take action because we don't know what he wants. And we force him to start tallying. And I tell him he cannot, he's not giving us any, he's just keeping quiet. We tell him he cannot tally himself. He has to shout the numbers because we are also educated and we have pen and paper, we tally together loudly. So we tallied, and of course I had won, and he gave me the certificate by 4. And I told him he has to give by 3, I think, and I told him he has to finish for my councillors. I can't leave because they can still live in your councillors.
Yeah.
So we finished the tally, and I left. Later on, I realized, had I left, because Mutaura called me, he was the head of public service, telling me to urgently come to Nairobi. And I told him I would not come to Nairobi without my certificate. And I realized later, had I left, my own team could have scored a goal against me.
Wow.
Because if those people who didn't vote, they manipulated and even took just 15,000, they could erase my victory, and I look like I'm trailing with 3,000 and give my opponent the rest to be ahead of me with 3,000. So the fact that I waited and was given my certificate saved me. I had not slept for 2 nights. So given my certificate on 28th, I refused to come to Nairobi. I did a lap of honor, went home and slept. So 29th, I drive to Nairobi in the morning, and I go to my house, drop some relatives, and then I go to KICC. No, I go to State House, where I find some ministers. You know, we have not, cabinet has still not been solved, so ministers are still ministers. You're no longer a member of parliament, but you're still a minister holding over. I found them sitting there and asked them what they are waiting for, why they have not gone to KICC. So I saw the president, and then I went to KICC. We followed each other with Uhuru and Kemunya. They told me we first enter Intercon. We entered Intercon, where they told me that they will find me at KICC, I'd be going. They never came until the following day. So at KICC, I find George Nyamoya. So we are the only 2 people for President Kibaki. As an elected official and as a minister, I had more voice, so I'm the only one seen talking. And even Kevoito is asking me, are you alone for Azimio? Because not for Azimio, for PNU. Because in the hall, it was filled with ODM. It actually looked like the Orange House. I even told a certain police officer that this is not Orange House, when they were trying to obstruct me from entering. You know? So we defended Kibaki's vote, because as an agent, when they are telling you do nothing, they announce and you hear. And they say what has come in from where. So a dispute arose. And the ODM people, led by Orengo, were insisting on a partial retally. I insisted on a full retally. 210 constituencies. They had been increased now to 210, which was accepted eventually. And that's how we spent the night at KICC to retally.
What? In
the course of retally, we discovered that Chepalungu, then Isaac Ruto was the MP, they have credited Raila with 377 votes, which is more than the population of Chepalungu at that time. They said it was an error, and they brought something else handwritten showing 37,000 votes. So 3 had been added in front of the 37. And they promised they'll remove that from the tally. Then there's a constituency, Kaspul Kabondo, if I'm not wrong, which had voted, 115% had voted. Then ODM was complaining about Junja, that the votes, there was something wrong with the tally of Junja of the Rakanithi. You know, everybody remembers the opposite parties' complaints. So they were complaining of those 2. Later, when there were election petition of William Kabogo against George Thuo, William Kabogo won on recount, and we had to go to the polls again. He was an Kenya candidate, and he won his seat. So I know there was ballot inflation, as Kriegler says, on both
Yes.
sides. And that's what makes me know that had I left Geshogo, maybe something would have happened to my ballots. Because I had some people within government who were fighting me. Yeah, so that's, there's more to that election than that.
Yes.
So at KICC now, when I come as Kibaki's agent, Orengo is my equivalent, is Raila's agent. And we are all depending on the Electoral Commission.
Headed by, what's his name again?
Keboito.
Yes.
ODM was insisting that in 2002, Kibaki was announced winner before a full tally, which is true. A few constituencies of some places in Wajir and Mandera had not been counted. But even if all the votes had been put in for Uhuru, they would not have made a difference. Yep. You can announce if the votes remaining cannot make a difference.
Yes.
But ODM is insisting that Raila be declared winner because he has a 1 million lead. Yet the votes of Mount Kenya, with 2 million expected votes, have not come in. You see?
I get it.
So when the votes finally came in, Kibaki was in the lead. And when he is finally announced winner,
all hell
and
breaks
he is
loose.
sworn in, hell broke loose. He was sworn in at 5 o'clock. Nothing wrong with that. The Constitution didn't give timelines, and Kibaki's mandate was going to end at midnight on the 30th. It was therefore imperative that whoever wins president be sworn in, because otherwise there will be a vacuum. Yeah, so he was sworn in.
But do you think from the optic perspective, what that meant for the public?
I think the public that have issue with the swearing in is the opposite side, because Kibaki's supporters were happy. And the country was split in two. Even parliament was hung.
Yes. It was a close election. That's what
Kibaki
you're
and
saying.
Raila were neck to neck.
Yes.
200,000 votes.
Wow.
And as per Kriegler, there was so much mess on both sides that he said you couldn't tell a winner.
Yeah.
But obviously the Raila supporters' narrative is that Mother helped Kibaki to rig in 2007.
Did you?
How would I help him to rig by being an agent? And how was Orengo not helping Raila to rig as an agent? That is doublespeak. I'm proud of being able to stand for Kibaki. And I was standing for my vote too. I had voted for him.
Yep.
I was there to listen and to defend, like to say you cannot announce a winner when we are waiting for 2 million votes. And eventually we overcame that. But I want to admit that we now know by hindsight that both sides exaggerated. And if you look at the results of the election petitions filed, you will see nullification on both sides. And if you read Kriegler report, you will see exaggerations on both sides. And since then, we have not been able to clean up our elections. Even when the 2010 constitution came, 2013 was another botched election. But I didn't complain because I said my ball was no longer in play. I got very few votes as a presidential candidate. So whether my votes were manipulated or not, I was not anywhere close to a winner.
Your percentage didn't really...
Yeah, so I didn't bother to complain. But 2017, my vote was stolen. And to know that it was stolen, who would steal my electronic evidence in Kirinyaga? It's only my opponent. If you won, why would your people steal the evidence?
Let me come back and ask a difficult question.
Yeah.
Given all things constant for 2008, did Raila win?
I don't think he didn't.
Given the no rigging, was he then the one who took the seat? Because a lot of people don't believe.
By the way, he didn't. There was an American group, a Professor Throop, who audited, and he wrote that in his audit, barring the exaggeration on both sides, and exaggeration is where there is 90%, you take 80 because 90 is not possible. Doing all that, he still believes Kibaki was ahead by 150,000 votes. I actually believe President Kibaki won, but I also believe there was complete violation of the voting code and the laws on both sides.
Yeah.
And I believe that had I left Gishogo because I had enemies within PNU,
Yes.
I would have been rigged out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The more important question,
Yeah.
can we have an election without rigging?
Yes, we can. And one of the things we can do is to be faithful to our country. You as the voting clerk, you as the presiding officer, which country do you live in? Do you enjoy when there are problems in the country? Why don't you do your job right and you're being paid by the taxpayers? And that is the same question to that doctor who will take medicine to a private clinic or use government hours for which he's being paid to do a private work. It goes to that lawyer who will exaggerate for writing a single letter and take millions from the people through the county or the national government. It goes to every professional. Which country do you live in? What country do you want for your children and grandchildren?
Yeah.
If we took responsibility, the way the Gen Z have taken responsibility for their country to the extent of giving their life, their health, and their everything, that's how to make a country. Those countries we love to visit in Europe and elsewhere were built by people like you and me. We too can do it. Let's stand up for Kenya.
I think one of the things that irritates a certain caliber of people is the fact that after every 5 years, just before elections, it's like you have to hold your business, hold on investment, hold on all of these other things because we're entering elections. Elections shouldn't be a thing that makes a country stand still for a moment of time. Holding, wondering, grasping, and then thinking, okay, we've got 4 years. We can't live like this.
Issue-based elections, issue-based politics, accountability are what we read of our country. And it's accountability at the personal and corporate level. Okay. And if I take you backwards a little about the 2007 elections, I want to ask for all those who still hold on, or Martha did something wrong, like you didn't want Kibaki, President Kibaki, to have an agent. I was proudly his agent. And do you think if really I had manipulated Raila's vote, because as an agent in Nataling, you have nothing, you cannot add anything, do you think he would have picked me for his running mate?
Drops mic. I love it. I love it. How then do we begin the reconciliation after that? And actually, not even, at this time I'm hearing, and this is another thing that is irritating me, I'm hearing a lot of tribal politics. Everything is about region and this, that, and tribe. That one tribe has been there throughout your whole story from the whole thing. So I'm like, and that's why I love Gen Z. Tribeless, leaderless, and a whole lot of other less. Are we there?